Next up, though, I'm excited to welcome back to Columbus, James Lima. I'm going to pretend we're all in Columbus because I'm hosting it. But so welcome back to Columbus, James Lima. I noticed that I actually made a typo on the thing. I said Jamie Lima, but it's James Lima. Hi, how are you? Thanks for being here.
I answer anything. Richard, are you posting my my deck, or do you need me to pull it up?
I am. Forgive me.
Well, I'll just start talking. So, we're real estate and economic advisors, and we help cities and property owners and foundations and downtown associations better compete for resources and for talent. But I want to talk less about economic strategy work, except to say that we absolutely believe that great design and placemaking is an integral part and should be an integral part of every community's sort of economic growth approach, and can play an important and timely role in making your places more equitable and resilient. So I'm going to talk just very briefly about that, and I'll try to breeze through all this and just think of it as a provocation, and in our next sessions we can get into more. You said I have an hour, right?
That's right, just about an hour. Yeah.
Great. All right, so I encourage you to read Palaces for the People, and it's a book about how the networks of social infrastructure, the people, places, and institutions of our communities, if they're better connected to one another, create this cohesion and create a resiliency that, with many examples, including the Chicago heat wave and other examples, have literally allowed communities to be more physically and socially and economically resilient. Next. So as economic and real estate advisors, we're a little bit of a unicorn. We think a lot about the experience, the human experience of place. Why? Because if you increase market demand for the experience of a place, of a district experience, of a downtown, of a waterfront, of an important corridor, Main Street, you're going to increase the market demand for the adjacent real estate to that experience of that public realm, that public space. And by the way, you own almost all of that public realm. So you're in a position of strength and control. And if you increase the market value of that real estate, you're going to increase the feasibility that there's less of a gap between the cost of building or renovating that space into new and productive uses and what the market will pay for it. So in many cases, great parks, great streets, and placemaking are the gap filler. They're a form of subsidy, if you will. As Layla was saying, they are a return on public investment because they pay generational dividends in higher economic output that benefits private owners, private businesses, your ability to recruit, attract, and retain talent. But they're going to help you compete with your peer cities. Next. So we know that, unlike in the past, talent doesn't follow IBM to a suburban office park, right? Talent has choices. And so we have to invest in place. And it's not just an individual park, it's the broader experience of our downtowns, of our villages, of our hamlets, of our waterfronts. And I think about it, next slide, in terms of loops. Like, each of us is an expert in placemaking, right? When you are taking a family visiting a new place for a friend, and you have this proud moment, you're showing off this place you love, you already have a mental map of this loop you're gonna take, and along that loop are a whole series of rewards. It could be a great food moment, it could be shopping, it could be culture, recreation, a vista, a cafe where you take in urban life, an urban perks, as I say. You need to think about the choreography of each of your places and the sense of animated public life, but really the economic competitiveness that you're working toward is our human desire for more connection and belonging. And so that's a really important part of your strategy. Now, in each one of these slides, in each one of these projects, next slide, it's about, next slide. Better connecting the assets you already have. Layla was saying the same thing, right? So, and creating more vibrant communities. For us, that's layering on these new hybrid mixes of uses, more vertical mixed uses, quality housing choices. Who do you want to be as a community in your future? Do you want your kids and grandkids to have the option of staying or returning to the places where they have family roots? Well, you need more housing choices, and you need more diverse economies. And you need to figure out ways, if you are creating more vibrant places, to unlock the real estate value by investing in those experiential places, and do the thing that government in particular is terrible at, and I can say that as a former government official and developer, is capturing created value and capturing it for purposes of redirecting it to do the things that the private market isn't doing and that you as government probably don't have the money to do. Next. I worked with the Urban Land Institute on a report, which I posted in the chat, which is the case for open space. And it makes the case why private owners and developers, the ULI membership essentially, should see it in their self-interest to invest in creating and sustaining parks and open space. And there are a whole bunch of benefits that are really in their interest. So this shouldn't just be a government responsibility, but how do we create these public-private partnerships that create a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of result. Next slide. Parks and open space are a huge part of the economic revitalization and economic growth strategies that we work on around the country. And there are a whole bunch of ways that they directly generate higher proximity premiums for real estate. They spur net new development in your downtowns. They drive tourism and job creation, talent attraction and retention, and overall district spending. This directly ends up in your coffers and provides debt service for municipal bonds to help pay for even more parks and open space. Next. In East Austin, which is a historically African-American neighborhood in Austin, Texas, that has already been under siege with the sort of tech gentrification citywide, it was about creating a master plan for a whole corridor with Gail, and Julia's here on the call, for honoring the heritage of this place, but also connecting to natural assets. A lot of our work is really about finding the connection between urban and wild, about nature and city, and our desire to have both and to have both next to each other. But in this case, it was about a more equitable economic development plan that prioritized small business opportunities and looked at incentives specifically to the communities of color that were already in the neighborhood and needed those opportunities, but also more housing choices at more price points, including affordable artist housing. Next. In Harlem, in a historically important cultural corridor, West 116th Street, we piloted a project with a local Harlem-based real estate developer to build the first LEED certified affordable ownership housing and provided extra city subsidy to allow for a cultural institution at the ground floor that featured African-American centric cultural attractions. It's really a wonderful project. Next. And work we're doing right now in downtown Myrtle Beach, everything from new housing, small business, restoring a wetland, and connecting a whole bunch of things that already are assets, but are completely distinct and siloed from one another. And then creating a place management organization, rethinking the governance structure of the downtown that prioritizes how the private sector can lead the risk-taking and funding and self-assessment to create value and to really invest in public places. Next. I am dying to show you the work we did for this competition across the White River for the old GM plant site. And I can't, but let me just say that the idea was to extend a hugely successful project in Indianapolis, which is the Cultural Trail. And by extending that bike and ped trail, which runs through the downtown of Indy, into a weak market location that doesn't have an established real estate market, to create radiating value from that extension of that cultural trail and start to create vibrancy and activity that through interim uses, pop-up events, and programming slowly creates that real estate value that we talked about. Similarly, for the great city of Memphis, which sits on this majestic bluff overlooking the Mississippi River, there is almost no great civic experience at the top of the bluff to take in the river. And so we proposed this civic terrace, which would really benefit the central business district's quality of life. So thinking about like, how do you use placemaking to achieve the objectives of your business community, but also create amenities and attractions for tourists, for downtown residents, and better connect things like Beale Street, which again, siloed completely away from this bluff moment from the central business district. So incredibly impactful potential connections through great streets and parks and programming. Next. And then in small scale, Janesville, Wisconsin had to make a decision about where the city's funded indoor sports complex should be sited to have the greatest return on public investment. And there were choices about, should we put it right in the heart of downtown, along the riverfront? Should we put it near the dying mall? Should we put it in some other place? And we helped them think about putting it at that mall and creating this new network of parks and greenways and creating a whole new identity for a failing economic model and rethinking the mall as a new civic center that had this day, night, year-round kind of family-friendly thing that was an important anchor that, to the mall owners' credit, they recognized would be a driver of foot traffic. Next. And then stewardship's a really important piece of this. So how can place management play a role? And who do you have in charge, next slide, of your downtown? So again, for Myrtle Beach, looking at the interrelationship between downtown business and property owners, principally funding everything, the role that the city itself can play in providing funding, but also the guidance and stewardship on zoning and capital projects. And then a business consortium paired with the Chamber of Commerce to really provide leadership and direction and a shared board of directors, a mostly privately led downtown place management model. Next. And then earned income. We can find all kinds of ways to deploy capital investment in our downtown places in ways that are additive to the public realm experience and create civic moments, don't feel like privatization or commercialization, but absolutely help you drive special events revenue and other earned income. Concessions revenues are like fantastic ways of supporting operations and management of parks. Next. And then those governance structures, there's a whole gamut of them that you really want to think about as you create more public places, open up a new riverfront, rethink a parks strategy in your downtown. Do you really want your parks department to continue to be the steward of it? Or do you want to think about a new hybrid model? There are a whole bunch of examples around the country. There's no one right way, but we can look at case studies that match you up with who you want to be and what works best for your community. So that's kind of an overview. Thank you.